Earlier this year, Katrina vanden Heuvel, right here, warned against the co-optation of feminist thinking by the conservative women then winning primaries. They may talk feminist talk, she said, but they're not marketing female-friendly policies. At the same time, ridicule is not the answer. Just ask the Mama Grizzlies. Every attack on Sarah Palin just gets them out of their cave. Frankly, I think political commentators would have gotten smarter about women in politics by now. But apparently, don't hold your breath. This year, it's Delaware's Christine O'Donnell. That's the darling of the Tea Partiers, even as liberals go on the attack, and we still don't seem to be clear about the basics. Conservative women, are they actually rising? Are they game changers? And are they fair game? And if so, for what? To talk about all that and more in a moment, I'm going to be happy to welcome back two familiar faces, Rebecca Traister, senior writer at Salon.com, and the author of the new book, Big Girls Don't Cry, and also with us, Betsy Reed, executive editor of The Nation magazine. They're coming up right after this.
It really is stunning how much of the passion of the conservative movement comes from the women.
Because we, the people, have had enough!
By the way, how much of the courage and the strength comes from women?
President Obama, he has awakened people because of the policies that he is pushing down our throats.
They promised essentially a cradle-to-grave lifestyle, and won't it be great, and it'll all be nirvana.
And they're lying to you. That's a lie.
And the culture has tried to take everything that makes women so strong away from them, their femininity, their morality.
Here is my message. I am no victim. I am no victim.
The assault is so arrogant, is so extreme, that's when you get the angry Mama Grizzly.
Well, that's the latest from the folks at Citizens United, the people that brought us Citizens United, and the people whose original name we should remember was Citizens United Not Timid. The acronym, quite pointed there. Both of you. Rebecca, welcome to the program. Betsy, welcome back, both of you. What do you make of this moment where clearly the right want us to focus on conservative women? Many in the liberal media also seem to want us to focus on these women, but in weird and wacky ways, because they make apparently great TV. Rebecca, you just wrote a whole book about this that says the election changed everything. Yeah. What happened?
Well, it's a little depressing to sort of have to revise that and say, it changed some stuff. I think one of the interesting things you just said is the liberal fascination with this conservative. You know, we're being told all over the place, not only by the right, but by the liberal media, which is often dutifully reporting this. This is the year of Republican women. And in fact, sometimes I get frustrated with the left because I think that there's an obsession and a fetishization and often a mockery of these Republican women, and yet there's no boosting of Democratic women on the left. There's no sort of equivalent competitive suggestion that, based in truth, in fact, that the Democrats are the party of women, that the Democrats passed Lilly Ledbetter legislation, that they made being a woman not a pre-existing condition in health care. And there's no sort of celebration of that fact on the left in this moment where all we're being fed is an argument that Betsy can talk a little bit more about, that Republicans are bringing us a new version of feminism.
Now, you do us a favor, Betsy, because The Nation has a new issue coming out talking about some of this stuff. You do us the favor of actually saying, what are the facts here? And what are the facts? I mean, are more conservative women coming out? Are there more women who are conservative? What's happening?
Well, I mean, I came to this subject thinking, you know, like a lot of other people, oh my God, you know, what's going on? Is there actually a movement of conservative women that we see on TV, these videos, these, you know, the Mama Grizzly? And actually, if you look at the numbers and the polls, there is no greater movement among conservative women than there ever was. It's not, it's almost entirely a marketing strategy on the part of the Republican Party. And it's an extremely effective one. I feel like our side has been captured by it. I mean, it's been, people just assume that suddenly, you know, the electoral landscape is going to be transformed by these women who, you know, didn't exist 5-10 years ago. But actually, in reality, there have always been a base of impassioned conservative activists that are female. And there are those people today. You know, Christine O'Donnell, she's been toiling around. But, you know, it's just that they have achieved a kind of media prominence today because it's important, actually, at this point in history for the Republican Party to present itself as something other than what it actually is, which is a party that represents angry white men, essentially.
And when large numbers of women gather together behind a candidate, it looks as if every political pundit entirely loses their ability to think critically. Here's Chris Matthews responding to the Christine O'Donnell win on the Rachel Maddow show.
Rachel, I have to say the power of women voters, you've got to look at it. Step back from the ideology or the cultural issues. There are an awful lot of women that felt frustrated by Hillary Clinton's failure 2 years ago. And I'm telling you, it's popping up. I hear it anecdotally, I admit. But I really, look at this picture here. These are women, and they may be conservative women, but they're women nonetheless, and they may be joined by other women who just feel it's time for more women to win these offices. And I wouldn't put that apart from the general election calculus right now.
Chris, it is impossible for me to imagine, though, that people who are disappointed that Hillary Clinton did not beat Barack Obama in the primaries are voting in large numbers for a candidate as extreme as Christine O'Donnell. I mean, yeah, chromosomes are there, but the politics are completely opposite.
Well, at least Rachel said it.
Yes.
What was he thinking?
Well, he was trying, I mean, you know, Chris Matthews went through a lot during 2008, and it was sort of an intense gender education that doesn't really seem to have taken entirely. So I think that he was trying to tie this into this issue that he manhandled very often throughout the last presidential election cycle. And he just got it so wrong, as he so often did during the 2008 election cycle. No, this is not about women voters. This was about an insurgent Tea Party candidate, extremely conservative politics, low turnout. I mean, there were a million factors that were not tied to some estrogen-based identification with Christine O'Donnell.
Or disappointment with Hillary Clinton's failure to win the
No association with the disappointment with Hillary Clinton's. But the people who were voting for Hillary Clinton and the people voting for Christine O'Donnell, like never the twain shall meet, as far as I can tell.
Now, Chris Matthews plays a role in your becoming a Hillary Clinton supporter.
Yes, I mean, he plays a supporting role in what was, I think, exactly this kind of stuff, a complete misinterpretation of what was happening with regard to Hillary Clinton as a female candidate. And we'd never seen a female candidate get that close to the presidency before. And the media absorption of her, as well as the reaction from my fellow Democrats, wound up, to my surprise, kind of radicalizing me in unexpected support for Hillary Clinton.
He most famously sort of belittled her and made fun of her when she cried in the New Hampshire primary races, and suggested that she only won because of crying.
Yes, well, he also sort of rolled around with happiness when she lost Iowa. There was a kind of celebratory glee with Chris Matthews, and a persistent, he also suggested she was only a candidate because her husband cheated on her. I mean, he did all kinds of fantastic things.
Are the media, right, left, all the rest of it, are at least middle, more harsh on Democratic women than they are on these Republican women? Do you see a pattern?
I think there's a media fascination with the Republican women because they sort of defy the stereotype, right? And that's something that the party has, really emphasized. But what I think is fascinating is that when you look at what women voters, I mean, that Chris Matthews seems unable to make any distinction among women of any kind. Women voters actually don't like these right-wing female candidates. It's male voters who like them. The extremely far-right candidates like Sharon Angle, Michelle Bachmann, there's a huge gender gap in those races. And it's something that the media doesn't seem able to grasp.
Is it partly because the kind of government-bashing policies are more problematic for women?
I think that's a lot of it. I mean, across the board, you see women much more supportive of Social Security, more concerned about cuts to government programs, and I think they also see these right-wing women who make their careers out of demonizing government as they distrust them because that women know that these programs are actually really important to their lives and that these women are not a sort of authentic representation of their interests in any way.
At the same time, Rebecca, you made a good point early on that there are some women who are just frustrated by how the Democrats rely on their votes but act like they're not really there.
Well, I think that's a frustration that's separate from what's happening with the Republicans, except that the Republicans offer this incredibly distorted comparative approach. One thing that is new, I think, in this cycle is that these women who've always been a part of conservative politics are now using sort of feminist ideology and feminist signifiers and the word feminism with respect to themselves. This is very new because for years the right and especially a lot of the vocal women on the far right, have been demonizing feminism. And now, in their project to rebrand themselves as the Women's Party, they're really deploying a lot of this language that they've been, incredibly distant from in the past. And I do think that even though that language is not reflected in any of their policy aims, in fact, their policy aims would work against women, what it does reflect is an appetite, a renewed appetite, I believe a re-energized appetite for conversations about gender, for conversations about sexism, for an embrace of feminism, or whatever you want to call it, that the left is not picking up on and taking advantage of, when the left should be picking up on it, because in fact, the left works on behalf of women, and that there is a frustration, my frustration with my own party for not reading the signals out there and saying, yes, women can stand to hear this. Women want to hear this. We want to hear about making history and embracing, not running away from notions of feminism and not talking about sexism. We want to get involved and be the Women's Party and put female candidates out there and advertise our strengths with regards to women.
One of the ways that the Tea Party folks seem to be stirring people up is by dressing themselves to an emotional level that women candidates have been told and trained to stay away from. Now that Glenn Beck is on television almost every night sobbing, is it okay to be a woman and candidate and evince some emotion?
I mean, what I think is really interesting is actually this year, a lot of moderate and mainstream Republican women have lost their primaries. All this media attention is on the Christine O'Donnells, Sharon Engel, who won. But a lot of the more mainstream and moderate Republican female candidates are totally sidelined in the party. They have no voice. So I think that there is a growing frustration with among not just women on our side, but women in the middle of the political spectrum who have basically no representation right now.
Advice to people who are just endlessly frustrated, Rebecca, quickly. We've got about 30 seconds.
Talk about it. I mean, mostly it's about letting people know that, that you want to be addressed honestly about gender.
Rebecca Traister and Betsy Reed. There's more information and a link to Rebecca's new book at our website, grittv.org, and the Nation's special issue at thenation.com.